Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. There's always a system. And in this particular case, the system would honor the old soul. Dear ones, we have said before to you, the ones who make the difference on the planet at this point in time are the ones who have the most experience. And when we say the most experience, we mean those who have lived again and again in the energy of what you call the earth. An experienced human being who has lived life after life, we call an old soul. I would like to tell you something if you didn't already know it. The old souls are the ones who are awakening. An old soul could be under 20, over 80, it doesn't matter. For the oldness refers to how many lifetimes you've had and how wise you are today because of it. And even now, there would be those who would ask, am I an old soul? I want to give you some parameters just to think about in these last moments of this meeting. But before I do that, I again want to tell you something. I see the sweetness, the beauty, the purpose of your being here. I come from the other side of the veil where there is no time. The perception there is different from here. In that place, if you want to call it a place, there is acknowledgement of all that you are. We see the frustrations of the single life you live, and at the same time, the beauty of the lives you've lived before. We've seen what you've been through, and what you believe you are here for. We see it all at once. And still you wonder, am I an old soul? And it's amazing for us as you sit here listening. Amazing that you would ask the question at all. Dear ones, there is so much here that I want you to feel, that I cannot even speak of. I want this message to ring with truth, so you know who you are. I want to start a journey of you asking the questions to validate that which you already know at some level. You are an old soul. Let me make a statement. I know who is here, and everyone who is here listening to my voice at the moment in this room are old souls, all of you, every single one. There is such a variety in the length of time you've been on the planet, what you've experienced, the various cultures that you have been in, the battles you've been through, the reasons you came. I want to tell you, the experience is vast, and it's not what you think. You're so linear. You think you came in life after life after life, and sometimes you were a sailor, and sometimes you were a mother, and sometimes you were a cook. That'd be nice if it were that simple, but it isn't. When I mean experience, I mean experience. What do you call a soul who comes in for 3 months and leaves? by agreement with their parents, so that a lesson would be learned or delivered, or an opportunity would be given for the parent to become spiritual through their sorrow. What about that? That is a lifetime that is profound and only 3 months long. Old soul, did you know that you would have done something like that? So basic, so profound, and so meaningful. Perhaps a mother has awakened spiritually and asked the profound questions of her life because of what you did, what you agreed to do. What about coming to this earth to only live till you're 19 and be terminated on a battlefield with a knife through you? And you might say, what good does that do anyone? I would like to say to you, dear human being, that every breath you take as an old soul on this planet is meaningful, is countable, is recorded, and beautiful. And some of you had to be on the battlefield as the ones who fell, and some of you had to be on the battlefield as the victors. And that is experience. And you might say, what possible thing would it keep us in a system of learning? What possible good does that do? Perhaps you'd remember it enough that someday you'd have the power within you to say, there will be no more battlefields, because it doesn't matter whether you're the winner or the loser. They're both low energy. That's experience, old soul. I want to give you the attributes of an old soul slowly, and I'm going to ask you for introspection. In other words, a word that says, I want you to analyze these things personally. Don't lie to yourself. Don't be in denial. I want you to sit and clear yourself right now, old soul. The first reason you know you're an old soul is because you're here. You don't have a room filled with human beings who are simply curious. At this level, learning these kinds of things in this energy, it's almost all old souls. Did you want to come? Even if you were dragged here by someone who wanted you to observe what took place, I will tell you, old soul, that is synchronicity, no accident. The first reason you know you're an old soul is because you're here. Dear ones, what do you think about when we speak? Do you hear Kryon? Do you want to hear Kryon? Or are you thinking about dinner later? Be honest. Old souls are curious about so much. But when it comes to this energy, they're attracted to it like a moth to a flame. You recognize why you're here. And at some level, you want more. A sponge for the information you are, not through curiosity, but because it's beginning to ring with the truth of the age. That's number one. Some of you are starting to have what I will call profound remembering experiences. Now, you have called them déjà vu, a phrase which means I think I've been here before. I have the feeling of remembrance, although I cannot remember if it happened or not. And some of you are having that more and more. You will meet a person, and you will walk away from the meeting and you will be convinced you have seen that person before, only to turn later that you never met them. You go to a gathering and you meet somebody who is so friendly and so familiar and is so family, and you get their information and you're excited for this new friend, and yet somehow through it all you realize it's an old friend. You're rekindling that which is profoundly friendship and family. You've met a mother or a daughter in a past life. Men will meet comrades and those who somehow they feel an affinity to, and they will call them mates and chaps and whatever it is, and want to be with them. It's more than that. You find a similarity of consciousness. It's more than that. You're starting to remember. I'm going to call it Akashic awakening. More and more, you are led into situations that seem familiar and faces that you think you know. And yet, it's the first time. My partner has it happen when he leaves his home and goes to countries and cultures he has never been to and never seen, and there he meets brothers and sisters, and it's hard for him to leave. Many don't speak his language and can only be available through interpretation, and yet he looks in their eyes and he knows their family. He knows their family. Far-reaching as it might be, his experiences all over the planet are ones where he knows he meets family. This is a symbol, a sign of being an old soul. And some of you are having it happen over and over. How many of you see 11:11 on the clock? Old soul. Did you know this is a delivery system to old souls so they know they're old souls? That's what it's about. It's out of synchronicity. By chance, you're not supposed to see those numbers that often. It is a system of communication, of love, that says, we know who you are, old soul. Perhaps you're a woman who has never had children, and yet at some level, you have, and you know it. You can feel it. Perhaps you're a woman who has never had children and you're not going to because you feel you've had children over and over and over, and now it's time for a rest. But you know what it's like, don't you? You really do. Old soul. You've been here enough time that your akash rings with being a mother. It is the same for men. A man who is sweet-natured, a man who would never hurt another human being, knows at the deepest level that he's probably put a sword through a few, and knows what it feels like at some level. Now, if you're a man sitting in this audience and listening to me, I challenge you to go there with me, because you'll feel it. You know you have. It rings in your akash. It is part of your cellular structure. As sweet as you might be, as respectful as you might be, this time around, you know you have warrior inside. Now, if you really want to get esoteric, women in the audience, you know you have warrior inside as well. You can feel it. You participated on the battlefields of earth and you know it. Although you may not respond to being a male, you can respond to battle. You know what it's like to survive or not on the battlefield. So much history was won and lost so often by those with weapons. And all of you in the room have participated to the fullest in all of it. Sometimes you died for your God, and sometimes you died for nothing. But you've had the experience of knowing what it felt like to come and go quickly. And the next time around to decide whether that is what you're going to do again, or why not. There are so many signs, and perhaps you're not aware of them, and some that hide. Here's one I want you to examine in your mind as you sit there. Are you naive or wise? Now, I recognize that a naive person will never think they're a naive person. I'm talking about wisdom beyond your years. Do you have wisdom beyond your years? And the answer in every case is yes, and you know it. As you sit there, in all honesty, with your body, with your brain, you know it. You have wisdom beyond your years. There are some young people here who feel it profoundly. Wisdom beyond your years. How is that possible? How do you describe what that feels like? Dear ones, I have just given you one of the keys to knowing you're an old soul. And you never talk about it with anybody. How can you say such a thing to anyone without them believing that your ego is in charge when you say, I am wiser than anyone around me? But perhaps you are. And you have that in common with a group. And you come together with them and you realize it. And you found family. Your wisdom comes through experience. You paid for it. Dear ones. That's how you know you're an old soul. Now the next one is difficult, and we have spoken of it before. But there is one thing that being an old soul creates in your personality, and you'll know you have it. I know who's here. For eons you have pushed against an old energy and you haven't done well. The old energy was always in charge. And you either had to hide from it or battle it. It never really got any better. Lifetime after lifetime you spent in this condition, always being beat back, until now. Now you awaken in an area of the galaxy at a time on this planet that the ancients have spoke of that is profound with change. The energy is on your side, and that is what we have talked about. However, what do you carry, old soul? Into this energy, what do you carry? You carry a lack of self-worth. Complete lack of self-worth. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. I want you to soul search right now. You know I'm right. You may be assertive on the outside. You may be strong to others, but when you're alone, you wonder who you are. You wonder if you're going to make it. You wonder if you're right. That is an old soul. Your experience alone has caused you to search if you're worth being here in this new energy. Your wisdom alone weighs all that is and comes up with this remark: maybe I'm not worth it to be here. And that's what you think about, don't you? Lack of self-worth is the attribute of an old soul. Now that is starting to turn around as you learn who you are, why you're here, and why you feel the way you do. There's nothing better than discovering truth, for it solves the past. Discovering truth of the past also puts the future in perspective, and you start to have the self-worth that you deserve. Here's number 6. Discovering purpose. The old soul has so much past performance. There is so much history that you've been part of that you arrive on a planet with new energy and you look around and you say, what is my purpose of being here? And you may have others tell you what it is. You may go to meetings where you are pretty sure you know what it is, but deep down, you have no idea. What is my purpose? What am I doing? It's an esoteric question, because some of you, if not all of you, at some level feel unfulfilled by what you're doing. It's not enough. It's not perhaps at the right time, or you've gone a different direction than you thought. Oh, old soul, it really shows that you are an old soul in a new energy, learning your way around again. For as many times as you've lived before, you've never lived in this energy. This is number 1. And so you feel a little lost, or perhaps the purpose is not clear, because the new energy does not give you the feedback the old energy did. You can't tell, because you can't trust what you feel. And so you ask the questions: am I doing it right? Is there something I should do better or more? I'm going to say this again. Old soul, as you begin to heal yourself from these attributes, your power really starts to show. You start realizing not only who you are and that you deserve to be here, but that you come in with so much experience. You begin to pull upon the experience. You may not even realize you are, but you are. Intuition becomes higher. You're starting to get advice for your own life, synchronicity on where to go, all based upon you being an old soul today. The ones who are just coming into the planet, dear ones, are surviving only. They don't have the tools yet. They will. But they're just figuring it out. What's it about? You know what it's about. You have the wisdom of remembrance. You're beginning to solve the problem, and we told you what the purpose was. We told you to relax and simply be here. We told you that it doesn't matter what you do. Here is a concept that does not work with what your parents told you. It doesn't matter what you do. Your light helps this planet. Your search for who you are helps this planet. Your esotericness sitting in the chair today helps this planet. The crystalline grid remembers what you're doing, and it will last for generations. You put into the grids of this planet the energy of the maturity of your lives. That's what you're doing right now. This particular new energy on this planet is like a sponge absorbing your energy, so that the next generations will have what you have learned as an old soul. There is a system here that's beyond what you think. Literally, while you're sitting in despair, wondering if you deserve to be here and what your purpose is, this planet is absorbing everything you've done and learned and is maturing because of it. That is the system that the old soul needs to know. Relax and be. Know that you're on purpose. Relax. Let synchronicity push you into the next thing, which will be benevolent and beautiful for you if you allow it. You've been through so many lives where you suffered. It's easy for you to think you're here to suffer. You're not. You're not. Parents, would you bring your children on purpose into a world so they can suffer with you? It doesn't make sense. It's not common sense spiritually. It's not common sense spiritually at all. You have to start using that intelligence that is spiritual, that would say, what would I do if I were God? And then at some level inside, there'll be a voice that says, you are. You are. A piece of the whole creation, you are. You can answer your own logical questions if you want. Finally, number 7. You would never think of this one. Dear ones, you don't know this one. You think this is obvious, and it's not. It's not. I can prove it. If you start talking to others about what I'm going to tell you right now, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Because the old soul in this energy has the ability to feel loved by God. And others do not. It takes a maturity. It takes lifetimes of experience for you to understand the benevolence of a creator and what that means inside. Now, here is something that I never said to my partner, and I reveal it here for the first time. He gave you the Kryon story. And he told you when he sat in the chair for the first time, he felt emotion. And that this was the catalyst that allowed him to sit in the chair again and again. Not only did he feel it, he liked it. He was not going to tell you that part. Because he knew what it was. He was an old soul, he is an old soul, and he was ready to feel the love of God, and he recognized family. And dear ones, the new souls don't recognize family. They don't understand the feeling that you have that's the maturity of being loved by the Creator. You're an old soul. If you can feel it, you're an old soul. Congratulations to all of you for being who you are. You are the ones to change the planet. In this room, you have come from all over in so many countries and so many languages. And you all have one thing in common right now, together. Old soul. You're going to change the planet. By your very presence here, light worker, The grid absorbs the light that you carry and have earned and brought to us. This is a system. And the new energy of the planet needs the old soul, the experience of the old soul, and the wisdom of the old soul to go into the grids so that those born in the future will have that which you have taught them through living your lives. A system that is esoteric, difficult to describe, and profound. Think of it. By living here today, you imbue into the grids knowledge for future generations. How do you think that humanity is ever going to mature and evolve spiritually without this knowledge? And the answer is it can't, and you are the ones who are putting it right into the grids of the planet. This, along with the time capsules from the Pleiadians, as they give this information to you, is going to create an ascended planet eventually. Far from now, but all important. You are planting seeds of the future just by being in the room and letting us speak to you. I close. What are you going to do with this? I want you to think on these things, if you can, if you will. I want you to think on all of them and ask the questions. Is it possible that I'm more than I think? Is it possible that God knows me as I just sit here with all my problems and my frustrations and all of the errands I have to run and the children I have to raise and the relatives that I have to please, and the bosses, on and on and on. Is it possible that God loves me through all this? And the answer is yes. Yes, yes, and yes. So important, old soul, are you? Congratulations. That's your purpose, to be. And so it is.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away, as normal. And what is left from the best of his ability is a clearance that allows for information to come in that's almost pure, sustained intuition. You might say that is channeling. It is the fourth channel, as I say, of the series which you call Discovery. And so this discovery is going to be entitled The Immensity of the Old Soul. And I'm going to paint a picture and give a list of why it is that we say that there is so much here in the room, those listening, when we say the word old soul. Because history is history, and because the human race itself has developed a consciousness which is fairly low, the old souls really don't know they're old souls. There is an intuition that will tell them they are, but they don't have the proof of it, for they don't remember. The human being comes into the planet with a consciousness that is not complete. And we have said this before. This is the teaching, that a higher consciousness is something that you are starting to evolve into. And we have given you some of the attributes of that evolvement. But it isn't here yet. It is only beginning. The beauty of the shift is that now you are awakening into the light, a place that will support this kind of evolution. The evolution of wisdom, compassion, love, knowledge, into something that we have seen before in other parts of your galaxy. We have seen it. We tell you it is there. Its ability for humans is there. And the free choice that you have will control the timing. But it's almost like a snowball that you cannot stop unless it hits a tree. That it has momentum. A momentum that we have seen before. And that is what the teaching has been. But dear ones, you arrive on this planet with a low energy that doesn't remember this. None of it. You may have lived 1,000 lives. You may have had all of the knowledge, the wisdom that 1,000 lives will give you, and you awaken and it's a blank. It doesn't carry in. Because that would be a high consciousness, and that is something that you will develop. Children being born generations from now will be totally different than when you arrived. They will be totally different than the children that are arriving now. So different over a period of time that history will take a look and rewrite some of the things they thought they knew about consciousness itself, about discipline for children, about education. What do you do with a group of children that start remembering how to read before they're ever taught? What do you do with a group of children that seems to intuitively know things they've never been shown? This is the evolution of the human race. And that is that the wisdom from the past lives that they may have had, whether it's 3 or 3,000, starts to show itself very early in their lives. You're not there yet. But in some ways you are. For in this group of listening old souls, all of the knowledge and the wisdom of the past and what you've learned that works and doesn't work is inside you. And so, as we said early on, old souls alive right now are beginning to have the sparks of remembrance. But I want to tell you what you're remembering. I want this to be a celebration of the immensity of the old soul, of the strength that is presented here in the chairs and those listening that call themselves old souls, beyond your wildest expectations of who you are. It's a celebration. It's not a teaching session, not now. This is a meditation. It's a celebration. I want you to listen. Don't space out on this one. I want you to listen. Imagine for a moment that human beings could be brought back from any time in history, reanimated at the highest level that they existed in, no matter what age they were. They could be brought back. And you're going to select who is going to be brought back, and you're going to put them around a round table. Let us start with the leaders of the centuries. Let us start with the finest politicians that ever lived, that became leaders, presidents, prime ministers, even kings, that were beloved by those around them for what they could put together and do. Kings in the past that were kings for tens and tens of years because the people loved them, were careful of their health, wanted them to sustain the realm because they were so good at what they did. They existed. Leaders of countries who were so beloved because they knew what the people wanted and they loved the people and understood the people, they existed. Presidents and prime ministers, where the people wished they could continue and continue because they were good at it and because the country was never more prosperous than at a time when they existed. They led well. They understood well. I want you to examine how many would there be? A lot of them. And you're going to bring them back. One by one they arrive with everything intact they ever had. This ability to sense how to arrange things, to make things work in a benevolent way so that those who elected them or those who were subjects of them would say, I hope this man or woman lives a long time. And here they are, and they take their seat at the round table. And now they're looking at you. They want to know why they're there. And you say, wait a minute. There's another group. And the next group are going to be the finest philosophers that ever existed. The ones who could think above those who could think. Who are profound in all that they did. And they take their seats at the table. And every generation has had them. Even the history before history had them. And they look at the kings and the leaders. They say, it's quite a group here. We'll philosophize about why they're here in a moment. What are we here for? And you say, wait, there's another group. And you involve the artists and the songwriters of time who wrote the most prolific lyrics about love, beauty, the ones that made your heart sing. And they come in one at a time and they take their seat and the table gets larger. Automatically, by the way. The more who sit there, the larger the table becomes. Group after group of the wisest and the best. And the last to take their seats are the masters of time. Who are the greatest masters of peace on this planet, of spirituality on this planet, who ever lived? Ones that could change physics with their minds, heal people at a touch, or perhaps just had the mastery attribute where the people loved them for their wisdom. And they show up and they take their seat. Now you have a table brimming with amazing wisdom and power and grace, knowledge and wisdom, beauty. They look at you and they say, what are we here for? And then you said, I want you all together to guide us through the next millennium. I just gave you one old soul. One old soul. If you've lived thousands of lives, you've been at least one of those. Maybe two, maybe even three. Can you imagine it? If you could imagine that group around the table, given that which is the directorship of the planet, can you imagine what they would bring? Number one, they remember everything. They remember why war doesn't work. because they've lived so long and there are so many of them, they don't forget it like you have. They remember what doesn't work, and the collective and the esoterics, the eclecticness of who they are comes together for solutions that are elegant and beautiful and make sense and are loving. This round table of souls from the past, who are you? If you had to build a list of the strength of the old soul, what would the list look like? Well, it would be long, but we'll just give you a couple. What are you an awakening to? And we'll give it to you in a hierarchy of importance, and we never do that. We always tell you our lists are going to be in a circle, and there's no hierarchy. There is this time. Look at it and remember it. And then you'll understand the importance of the strength of the old soul. The greatest strength in this list, number one, they know they are worthy. Have you heard that before? There is no question, if you interview every single one of them, they know they're worthy. And if you said, wait a minute, I've heard that artists are a little dysfunctional, and you've got some on the panel, ask the songwriter who's written the songs of history, are you worthy of writing this music? And they will say, yes, it is inside us. It is our conception of beauty and God and the heart. We are worthy. Ask us to write a song. That's the kind of worthy they are. Ask the kings and the leaders, are you worthy? They'll say, yes, we are worthy to lead the country, to realm, to be kings of the realm. We know what we're doing. Ask them. Ask a master, are you worthy? They will say, we are worthy because we know love. We know compassion. We know balance. We're worthy. Not one of those on the panel is an unworthy person to be there. And they all know it. Number one, the strength of the old soul is one who has a discovery they're worthy. Number two, I want you to listen to this hierarchy. Number two, every single one of them has a joyful spirit. They have been able to capture and bring forward the inner child so that they can laugh. And that laughter creates an interesting solution to puzzles. It's almost like the laughter itself creates a coherence with all of them. It brings things to a level where all of them understand. Number two, joy, laughter. Being able to enjoy yourself no matter what. Number two, Kryon, is wisdom in here somewhere? Number two is joy. Oh, yes. Why should it be number two? Because the thing that passes untouched through the veil between you and God is laughter and joy and love. You're not going to get very far unless you can relax in a confluence of joy and wisdom in your personality. There have been some who say, well, you've got to be extremely serious to be spiritual. Show me a spiritual person who is not joyful, and I will show you a person who's not really spiritual. Dear ones, they go together. There's nothing like a laughing monk. They go together. That was number two. Number three, experience. And this is the one that will then create wisdom. Every single one on the panel. Been there, done that. Knows what they're doing. Did you hear me? Knows what they're doing. They're worthy to do what they do. They wouldn't have been leaders, loved by their people, having abundant countries, knowing how the economics work, having a balance. They wouldn't be able to do that unless they knew what they were doing. Old soul, are you starting to get this? This is you. This is what is inside right now of every old soul that hides, that doesn't come forward, that is never remembered. That's the strength, the amazing strength you have. It's more than awakening to light. It's more than awakening to the knowledge that God is good. It is bringing forth in an Akashic way, knowing what you're doing when it comes to producing these things that are called compassionate action, which, by the way, is next. Number 3, experience. Can you imagine how much experience is around the table? Can you imagine how much experience is in your Akash? Can you imagine a system that remembers every single day of every single life? Is it possible that your DNA could store that much information? And the answer is, oh yes, that and more. What if you could tap it? That means you could pull upon experience and you'd know what works and what doesn't work. Over and over, to the point where you knew what you were doing. You'd have intuition that knew what to do next because you know what doesn't work. That's wisdom. Call it whatever you want to. That is a wise human being who makes good choices. Been there, done that. Can you imagine what you have inside you? Wouldn't you like to just pull upon that to know the next step, right, wrong, what to do, where to go? You may not know the future, but you will have intuition on what doesn't work. You'll be able to sense it and feel it and know it, just like the leaders did, the masters did, around the table. Number 4 is compassion, but it's not compassion, it's compassionate action. These are words put together for the first time. You haven't heard them before much in the last decade or so. And it's difficult to explain. If you have compassion, you have an emotion. It's a beautiful emotion. In fact, it's an elegant, elevated, and evolved emotion. If you have compassion for a situation or for another, you have empathy for them and you feel the situation. And many humans have compassion. You have compassion for other humans, for the animals, for the earth. And you can stand around and you say, I'm a compassionate being. But let me tell you what compassionate action is. It's the next step after feeling compassion. Compassionate action is compassion then with something that goes with it, an actionable item. And that could be the knowledge of how to pray for it, how to work with it, what to say to those who are experiencing it, seeing an overview why something happened, having then insight into the compassion that you would have, and then having an action of it. What to say, as I say, how to pray, how to meditate, in order to then work with that situation that caused the compassion. The masters, that's what they do. That's what they have to offer around the table. For each one of them could see a situation in a human life. Some of them were able to touch somebody, and that somebody felt the two-way connection between them and the master, and they were so appreciative that they had somebody who understood and they were not alone anymore. Can you do that? If you have compassion for the earth, you can pray for the earth. You can connect yourself with nature and be part of it, doing something around just being compassionate. Sometimes, dear ones, too much compassion will create sorrow, and you know what I'm talking about. That is an unbalanced compassion. Compassionate action is understanding and seeing, not becoming part of it, but knowing what to do. That was number 4. Number 5, self-balance. Every single human on the planet goes through cycles. And the cycles are not light and dark. Call them what you wish, but they are cycles that are common to all humans. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't. There are days not to reveal anything that is perhaps secret, but I know who's here, and I know who's listening. And there'll be days even when the light worker will say, I think I'll give up. That's the lowest of the low, isn't it? And you've all been there. And then there are cycles where I say, everything is beautiful. I want to sing. I don't care who's listening. I'll sing in the car. I'll sing in the field. I'll sing in the hallway. I don't care because I am so grateful for God. And in between there is where you live. Now let me tell you something. In these few years that are coming from the middle of the precession of the equinox, there is an attribute that some of you are feeling. Those years I'm talking about are the 18 years from December 21, 2012 to the end of the precession of the equinox. That precession is a 36-year window as you precess in the sky, literally, in astronomy, through the stripe, which is the Milky Way. Esoterically, it represents that shift that we've been talking about. Now you're into the 18 years since 2012. In those years and the remaining ones, there are going to be higher highs and lower lows than you're used to. Why should that be, Kryon? What is going on? Why would this be an attribute of an old soul and the new energy? And I will tell you, dear ones, because the limitations have been removed of how high or how low your free choice will take you. And the reason is because with the limitations removed, an old soul who finds the spark of enlightenment will now go higher than they've ever gone before. A self-balancing old soul will recognize that when they're in depression for a moment or two, they don't have to call their astrologer. Astrologer, you know exactly what I mean. You don't want that many calls. In other words, you self-balance. You'll know that if you can wait it out, that the light always comes back. It always comes back. And the more you self-balance, the better you are at it. The spark says, I am self-balancing. It's important that you balance to a point where you stay balanced and others will see the balance no matter what. Even on this stage today, the teaching has been there from several of your teachers that say that others will have chaos around them and they'll see you walking through a situation balanced without drama. And eventually, after the chaos is over, they'll come to you and say, how do you do it? That's balance. That's mastery. That's you in control of you. That was number 5. Number 6, the final one. Of an immense list of attributes of enormity, of talent, We're only giving you 6. And the last one is that the old soul learns how to create their own reality. And so they never fear the future. Things may happen around you have no control of, that spill over into that which is you. You don't fear it because you know that you have control of what's next for you. And there will always be a synchronicity that will lift you out of what is inappropriate. Because the question is always this: well, I can control myself, but I can't control others. What do I do when they come at me, or I'm in a situation I can't control because somebody else? And the answer, dear ones, is the synchronicity will take you from these things if you expect it. So something happens which is a challenge. Watch your words. When something happens that's a challenge, what do you say? Well, some will say, I knew that would happen. What have you done? Oh, you've just told the universe you expected bad things. It's a tough one. But what if you reframe it and rewrite it? No matter what challenge comes to you, you say, this is another challenge. I'll get through this one too. And on the other side of that channel, and that challenge, that challenge, which is being channeled, something else will take place that you didn't expect because you went through the challenge. What kind of a human is it who can face those kinds of things which are so negative to some and so dramatic to some, and will stay balanced and say, this or something better? The benevolence will show itself when this is solved. And they'll look at like you came from another planet. And by the way, you did. Old soul, you are unique on this planet. And you are immense with talent. That round table is you. And if you will believe these things and understand these things, the next thing I'll say is this growth is slow. And it's going to take generations for this to start developing and you to see it in action. And if you say, well, I wish it would happen in my lifetime, my answer is, it will, because you're coming back. I'm sorry. But it's the human in the older energy that's tired and says they're not coming back. What if I told you you will awaken young again? And in that awakening, you will never make the same mistakes you made this time. Does that make a difference? And you will live longer for it, and you will remember things that will create a life that you didn't have this time. And I will tell you, you're not going to miss the party. As soon as you're on my side of the veil, and we look at one another, and we do, this whole idea you have of who comes back when and why, wash it away, because you're going to look in my eyes and say, I want to return. How soon can I return? And we already told you that the system of return is so much different in the new energy. You were told, well, so many years have to go by, or this or that. That is not the case. You can come back in months, dear ones. And some do, and some have, and some will. There are those you've loved and lost. Listen, you know who I'm talking about. Mother, father, husband, wife, brother, sister. There are ones you've loved and lost recently who are back right now. Can't you feel it? It's almost like they never left. Their consciousness is here. And if you could tap into it, and you can, there'll be a big smile. I'm back. Like they never left. The love continues through the ages, through the veil, through death, and you can sense it. Because death is not the end. It is simply a transition. And in this particular case, in this energy, it is a transition of light. Some of you had to hear that. That is all for now. But it's quite enough. Do you see yourself yet? If you don't, I'll tell you something. That's how we see you. Why would we see you any different than you see yourselves? I want you to break this paradigm that keeps you in the dark and start to recognize what's going on. Dear human being, I'm in such love with you for what you're about to do on this planet, in this life and the ones to come. And so it is.